Good afternoon. We have just said the ancient traditional bracha, the words of sadness, the words of grief. Baruch atah Adonai, Dayan ha'emet, praised are you, Adonai, who has judged this moment to be a moment of parting. Adonai natan va'Adonai lakach, Yehi shem Adonai mevarach. Adonai, God has given us an amazing human being. And sadly, God has taken. Praise be the name of Adonai. Kohelet, known as Ecclesiastes, said the eye is never filled with seeing. Young or old, those who depart this life never see enough of the world, never complete their task, never cherish their loved ones enough before they are called home. And how we would have yearned to have them close to us for yet another mission in our lives, yet another joy, yet another precious moment together. God be now with those whose hearts are broken, because whenever it comes, parting comes too soon. Console them at this hour when consolation seems elusive. Be near to them when light seems so distant. Lift them up, O God, when the time shall come for healing. We gather to mark the passing of, but more importantly, to celebrate the life of David G., or Dave, London, with his beloved bride, Kim, with his children, Allie with Kevin, and Stephanie with Adam, with his grandchildren, Lucas and Ari and Zev, with his brother Chuck and sister Sally and Lou, with Kim's sister, Christy and Kendra, with nieces and nephews who were like his own kids, Ellen with Ethan, Rachel with Shervin, and Elliot with Whitney. I, like you, am a mourner because Dave London's friendship made him like family. In fact, most of us in this room thought he was family. And like the author Ecclesiastes, whom Dave would tell you was supposed to have been written by King Solomon because he loved Bible study so, like Kohelet, we cry out, it is too soon. But I believe that even if Dave left us after his 70th birthday, or his 80th birthday, or 90th, or even 100th birthday, we'd still say, too soon. And so with the biblical Job, we regretfully say, the Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord who created and gave us such a wonderful soul to fill our lives. As Kohelet said, L'chol zman ve'et l'chol chefetz techat shamayim. There is a time for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for being born and a time for dying, a time for planting and a time for uprooting that which is planted, a time for destroying and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up, a time for weeping and a time for laughing, a time for wailing and a time for dancing, a time for throwing stones and a time for gathering stones, a time for embracing and a time to refrain from embraces, a time for seeking and a time for losing, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for tearing and a time for sowing, a time for silence and a time for speaking, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for war, and a time for peace. Almost 3,000 years ago, the psalmist wrote a few lines of poetry that have endured through the ages. It is perhaps the best loved and most often repeated poem in the Western world. It is used most often at times like this for comfort and stability. We first hear the words of the 23rd Psalm in Hebrew, and then we'll recite them together in English.
Adonai, Roi, Lo Exar, in Hodeshe, Yabitzeni, Ame Manuchot, Ame Manuchot, Yana Leni. Nafshi Yushovev, Yushovev, Yancheni bima giletzeder, Yancheni bima giletzeder, Leman Shemo. Gam ki elech behagat somavet lahia ki hata imadi shibticha umishon techa b'mayana chamuni. Taharoch lefanai, lefanai, shulchan again sororai, dishanta vesheman roshi kosi ravaya. Atov v'chesed yidifuni kol yemei chayai, kol yemei chayai, v'shavti v'vet Adonai li'orech yamim. Adonai Roi, Lo Exar, Adonai Roi, Lo Exar.
For those who would like to join along, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. A rabbi has written the following meditation, Rabbi Chaya Gusfeld. You can't bring back the dead, but you can live with them inside your feet and your hands, guiding your cooking, your dreaming, your words, singing melodies of comfort so sweetly. You can say their names out loud, name your children after them, make movies about them, wear their socks or pajamas, or a necklace made of some trinket you got with him on some cruise. You can't bring back the dead, but you can ponder your regrets and write them an I'm sorry letter and pray for forgiveness and know that you might just be one of those people who waited too long, maybe. You can put together intricate photo collages of them in their ages of glory, when they were sleeping, when they were posing, hoping to smell them again or sit on their lap. You can see them suddenly walking down the street, some gait, some clothes, some bad haircut. You can hear their voice calling to someone. You can't bring back the dead, but you can look into the eyes of your mentor and know that's your dad looking back at you through his eyes saying, yeah, it's me. You do get another chance. Don't be afraid. You can eat that chopped liver or brisket as if dad is in the room saying, have some more, it's delicious. You can tend your plants as if his arms were your arms and your intuition is really his. You can't bring them back, but you can learn their Torah passed down from generation to generation. You can write their name on your sidewalks, in the synagogue or church, in your poetry. You can't bring them back, but you can know that you will join them someday, and others will not be able to bring you back, no matter how much they howl or plead or bargain. You can't bring me back when I'm called to the other side, but maybe someone will write a poem in my memory. Benjamin Franklin wisely wrote, we are spirits, that bodies should be lent us while they can afford us pleasure, assist us in acquiring knowledge, or in doing good to our fellow creatures is a kind of benevolent act from God. But when they become unfit for these purposes and afford us pain instead of pleasure, instead of an aid become an encumbrance and answer none of the intentions for which they were given, it is equally kind and benevolent that a way is provided by which we may get rid of them. Death is that way. Our friend and we were invited abroad on a party of pleasure, which is to last forever. His chair was ready first, and he has gone before us. We could not all conveniently start together, so why should you and I be grieved at this, since we are soon to follow and know where to find him? And Ralph Waldo Emerson might have talked about success and talked about Dave London. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to learn and appreciate of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a little bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden path, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you lived. This is to have succeeded. And to our young folks, but perhaps to all of us, the story goes, Small said, but what about when you're dead and gone? Will you love me then? Does love go on? And Large held Small snug as they looked out at the night, at the moon and the dark and the stars shining bright. Small, look at the stars, how they shine and glow. Yet some of those stars died a long time ago, but still they shine in the evening skies. Love, like starlight, never dies. We are prepared for birth, but death sometimes comes as a terrible shock. At one moment, our beloved is seemingly healthy, and then the next, he's gone. At such moments, we ponder the meaning of life. We search our souls and our world and each other for answers. We look for some explanation for why God would take such a precious soul, so engaged vibrantly in life as Dave London. And while there might be no adequate answer to our questions, we can find some comfort and understanding in these moments of reflection. For with all of God's power to create and bring into existence such a fine person as Dave, There are yet some things that the divine does not control. God does not give us cancer, strike us with disease, or send us heart attacks. The God in which so many of us believe may have created life, may have made the soul infinite, but that creator, unfortunately, does not patch up finite matter. We do that. We do the best we can, and sometimes we can't. It may not be that some divine decree decided that this was the moment of death. It may be that this was simply in the hands of nature, of chance, of the inexplicable riddles of mortality. The Jewish tradition states, it would be right for righteous souls to live forever, but nature takes its course. How fragile we all are. Yet life is not all chance, and God does have a purpose for humanity. The divine purpose is achieved through our lives and how we conduct them. And if one of the purposes of life is the emergence of fine human beings, worthy souls who bless us with their goodness, who love those around them, and who serve the rest of humanity, then the divine purpose was indeed achieved in the life of Dave London. Dave is what we in the Jewish community call a mensch, a good man in the most basic sense. He packed more energy, more worth, and more usefulness into his life than most others who grow old and frail. I was honored to be adopted into the London family over a decade ago at Stephanie and Adam's wedding. My husband, Michael, was having such a great time that he asked if we could become honorary Londons. Blessedly, we were accepted, and I have the picture with the napkin bunny to prove it. Another reason I got adopted is due to my longevity in this pulpit. Chuck was one of the first members here at Temple Beth Or. Ellen and Rachel, part of our first consecrants. And this brought Dave into our community. Throughout my entire career, I've been blessed to officiate at London baby namings, consecrations, Benot mitzvah ceremonies, confirmations, weddings, and even funerals. So I looked up what I had written for Dave, Chuck, and Sally's father's funeral a decade ago. And everything I said about Alan London, I could just repeat all over again today about Dave. His life was of service to his family, friends, and humanity, his nation, the Jewish homeland, and his people. Dave filled his father's shoes, and I think for Dave that probably would have been eulogy enough. Plus, how can I recount David's lifetime of achievements and accomplishments when, because of his own humility, none of us know the half of it? Take Temple Beth Or. Many people here remember that Dave was a past president here. But if you look around the room, there's all kinds of things you don't know. Like that projector. Dave installed it a decade before streaming in high-tech multimedia hit churches and synagogues. And see that silver menorah, which was commissioned for our 20th anniversary? Here's something no one knows. Every child's initial is engraved in silver and attached to the back. Dave did that. He painstakingly helped every child not hammer their thumbs as they engraved their initials into a tiny piece of silver, and he mounted each one on the back of that menorah. Dave made sure that every child's imprint was left with us, even though he gave that effort anonymously. And likewise, every mezuzah that you see in this building, they were made by the recently deceased artist Gary Rosenthal in honor of our 25th anniversary. But Dave built the mounting pieces and affixed every one onto every door of this temple. It's like when the artist Michelangelo was on his deathbed and a friend grieved, "Michelangelo, how is Rome going to get along without you?" And with a weak wave of his hand towards the city beyond, so filled with his creations, Michelangelo answered, "Rome will never be without me." And so Dayton, Temple Beth Or, will never be without Dave London. As Dave breathed his last, his family wondered how they were going to go on without him. And they did this amazing, heroic thing. The family gathered around Dave with music and love and tears and words of encouragement and tender memories. Just as Dave was greeted over 6 decades ago with joy with his birth to Elaine and Alan, so was he delivered to the next world, surrounded by family, love, tears, and music. Few of us could hope for such a beautiful departure. Dave loved music, and so that day's soundtrack was both prescient and remarkable. First was the song by the Beatles, All My Loving. Close your eyes and I'll kiss you. Tomorrow I'll miss you. Remember, I'll always be true. And then while I'm away, I'll write home every day and send all my love to you. For Dave London, love of family defined his life first and foremost. I have pictures of him sitting in the sanctuary with Mimi and a tiny Allie and Stephanie from decades ago, because Dave dragged that family to more High Holy Days and more Passover Seders than anyone can imagine. But they were good sports and made good memories here. Your dad was so proud to watch you grow into the amazing women that you have become. He danced at both of your weddings and welcomed Kevin and Adam into the London family. And recently, having you both so close to home was a gift that kept on giving. But the icing on a wonderful Stephanie cake was when he became a papa to Lucas and Ari and Zev, on whom he doted and for whom he cooked. He loved spending time with you, encouraging your hobbies, spoiling you with gifts, and did I say food? How he enjoyed cooking for you and feeding you and enjoying you as your grandfather. The very values that Dave derived from his own parents, he was blessed to see that he had instilled in his daughters and then his grandsons. And now it is up to you to send all his loving out into the world. Likewise, his love will be kept alive by his big sibs, Chuck and Sally, who have been by his side his entire life. Together through thick and thin, they are a trio raising their children to be not just cousins, but almost like siblings. Ellen and Ethan, Rachel with Shervin, Elliot and Whitney, they were like his own children. And Christy, Kendra, you guys became sisters by choice. All his loving is kept alive by this great plan and how you love and pass that into the world. The next song on the playlist, of course, Seasons of Love from Rent. How can we measure the year in the life of a man or woman? We all say, gosh, he was so young. We all say, he filled so many 5,000, 25, 600 minutes, and he filled them with so much love, but more importantly, with so much service to each other. As Dave would be the first to tell you, I am not the one who can do the math of 67 times that number. But the Air Force Museum added up his moments of service to them, and that's why they made him Volunteer of the Year. And Renate Friedman couldn't estimate the time that went into solidifying and restoring the prejudice and memory of the Holocaust exhibit. Same with Steve Markman for Dave's hours of service for the Jewish war vets. And who could count up how many hours went into Dave's service to the Jewish people here and abroad, the state of Israel through our partnership program and through the Dayton Jewish Federation? And what about all the things that he gave to our nation's security through his military prowess and then private sector careers? I can't begin to name everything Dave contributed because he did it so humbly and anonymously behind the scenes. This is what our Jewish tradition counts as the highest form of tzedakah, righteousness. But if, as our liturgy suggests, there are scales of justice in the beyond, the seasons of love and service of Dave's life will outweigh everything else. And finally, in the end, it was as if everyone disappeared from the room, and there was only Kim and Dave, and the words of the song More by Frank Sinatra became the soundtrack of their special love. More than the greatest love the world has known, this is the love I give you alone. More than the simple words I try to say, I only live to love you more each day. Kim, you were Dave's joy, not only during your short 1.5-year marriage, but also for the 17 years which you shared, first as friends, and then travel buddies, and then partners, then lovers, then husband and wife. Although it took Dave some time to formalize your union, you already had become best friends and life partners. You knew it, he knew it, and your family knew it. Perhaps it was the pandemic or the many losses that we endured, but it brought Dave to realize that he wanted to formalize your union that began so long ago on that dark and stormy night. And no spouse has ever loved as much, honored as intensely, fought as hard, advocated so dedicatedly, read her partner's mind and heart as Kim has this past couple of months. While your marriage was too brief, and the love you two had, the family you created, the joys and the sorrows that you shared were more profound than many people have in decades of marriage. Dave was prescient. Deep in his heart, he knew he couldn't do it without you. He couldn't live without you, and he couldn't have died without you. You are his soulmate, and I know that he would have wanted you to remember all the celebrations of your lives together, traveling the world, the fine dining, and the good times. He never would have wanted to have become a burden to you, while we all know that your love is so great for him that he could never have been a burden. At least we can be gratified that he had everything he wanted on that final day: family, music, love, and you. While his passing leaves us all, and most of us, shocked and bereft, Dave London left life just as he wanted on his terms, filled with dignity and solace and comfort, his soulmate holding his hand, just as you did throughout your marriage, and his family filled with love. That might be the most blessed death that anyone could wish for. And so as you beautifully inhaled his love with his last breath, you made real the words that might have been coming from his heart. My life will be in your keeping, waking, sleeping, laughing, and weeping. Longer than always is a long, long time, but far beyond forever, you'll still be mine. I know I've never lived before, and my heart is very sure no one else could love you more. One final memory. Before Kim and Dave were married a year ago in January on this very spot, Dave said, I want to start the wedding with memorial candles. What? I said, you don't do Yisker. You don't talk about the dead before a wedding. You can do it at the rehearsal. You can do it at your party afterwards. But Dave said, no, I want to begin this wedding with a memorial. And so Dave and Kim's beautiful chuppah was illumined by the memorial candles kindled in memory of Alan and Elaine London, Martin Dinsmore, Gordon Kimbrell, and my own beloved Michael, shedding their light on your beautiful union. Today we add a new light for David London, whose soul is now bound up with those souls of those whom he loved. We pray that just as he was delivered into the next world with your hugs and tears and palpable love, so was he received with a joyful welcome and hugs by those whose values he admired and in whose light he walked. For indeed, he lived a very full life worthy of their memories. In this moment of loss, we may despair, but Dave will say, how can we get along without you, without your wisdom and consistency, your humility and humor, your love of learning and deeds of loving kindness, your brisket and smoked salmon. And Dave, the Dave we all love, would blush and just wave a hand and remind us Dayton will never be without me. We will never be without Dave London if we keep his memory as a blessing. Amen. We now hear some memories and thoughts from the family. Ali and Stephanie are going to try to do this.
Originally, I said I didn't think I'd be able to speak. That could still be the case, so I'm very happy to have my wonderful sister up here with me. Our dad was the most supportive father. He was always my biggest cheerleader. He would drop anything for anyone in the family. I don't know how many times I would call him just to say hi, and he would leave a meeting or something important just to answer my phone call, but then always call me right back the second it was over. He always validated and supported all of my life choices and made sure to reiterate how proud he always was of whatever I was doing. Our dad loved to share our lives and share our interests. He would always have a great book recommendation, share a recipe he made, or just send an email with a subject line, "Saw this and thought of you." When I became a football fan, which he never saw coming, none of us did, and he loved to tell everyone about it, he watched every Bengals game and would text me after an impressive play. In fact, his rehearsal dinner happened to be during a Bengals playoff game. He made arrangements to have the game streamed during dinner because he knew how important it was to us. Our dad was goofy. He loved to laugh. He loved to make us laugh. He was impossible to buy a gift for. He was always content with whatever he had, and if he really wanted a new gadget, he was just gonna buy it himself. Every year, for as long as I can remember, I bought him the day-by-day Dilbert calendar for Hanukkah. And every year he'd see that small box and say, "I know what that is." Our dad could not sit still. He always needed to be busy, always needed a project. If my kids needed quiet time after going to the zoo or Kings Island, or sometimes both in one day, there's my dad upgrading all of our light switches. If I am half the parent to my kids that my dad was to me, my kids will be the luckiest kids in the world. Dad, I love you.
I should have made the font bigger. So, our dad's blood was O negative. This means he was a universal donor. He could give to everyone, and he did. Besides the impressive feat of giving over 100 pints of blood, or over 15 gallons in his lifetime, he gave time. Our dad went to so many of our kids' games, school plays, and scouting events, even when I was living in Virginia. He improved our homes and wasn't afraid to watch YouTube videos to learn a new skill like plaster. He then taught a lot of these skills to us, our husbands, and even our kids. He gave us life skills. I remember when I was 12 or 13 on a Sunday evening, he drove us to a neighborhood where all the homes were still under construction. He taught me how to drive stick that night. A few years later, I was the only one who could drive a manual at our youth group Temple Car Wash. And my dad was so proud when I later got to drive our Uncle Chuck's Porsche. He gave us laughter, independence, and a love of the theater, travel, and technology. He gave us resources. He gave to so many places, including his alma mater, the Air Force Academy, a school he was proud to boast beat the Ohio State twice in the 2 games they played. He gave briskets, or Hanukkah steaks, smoked salmons, and elaborate tea parties. He gave us and our kids trips to Kings Island and so many treats to our dogs. He gave us a sense of humor, although a questionable one, introducing us to Monty Python, Murder by Death, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and the Muppets. In a sea of Michael Jordan biography book reports, I was George Burns. He gave us tradition and the love of doing things as a family. Listening to Alice's Restaurant at noon on Thanksgiving and using the same Passover Haggadahs every Seder. We would write our names and sometimes a comment in the front, and there was always the joy of seeing who had used it before. He forgave us. I knew we definitely tested that along the way, or at least I did. He gave love. He gave so much love to us, to all of us. He was an amazing dad and even better papa. 2 nights ago, I learned about the first time he donated blood. It was when he was a freshman at the Air Force Academy. They made an announcement in the dorm that O-negative blood was needed at the hospital for a baby born the night before who was being kept alive by donations. He did not hesitate. The top of a rocket is called an ogive, although it's pronounced ogive, but it's the letter O and give. I know he would have appreciated this play on words. He was an Eagle Scout, where service to others is stress, and an Air Force core value is service before self. He gave us that and was an outstanding role model who made us want to give to. Thank you, Dad. We will love and miss you always.
I got to be the big sister. Dave's my brother, and Dave was my friend my whole entire life. We played together, we ate meals together, we adventured, and we grew up together. There were bike rides and bike crashes. There were school events, double dates. Our first concert was the Beach Boys. And then there were teenage secrets told and kept. Way back when we shared an early interest in cooking that you've heard so much about, we prepared a fine family meal of tuna fish, certainly on toast, and chocolate milk. Most of you know David's cooking skills did advance beyond tuna. His meals became epic. Chocolate milk remained a staple. I have a very special memory of David and me cooking together. For family, of course. We were preparing a meal for friends and family at an Italian villa. Imagine fresh pasta, vegetables and herbs from the garden, and an unending flow of wine. Some went into the food. We got a little silly, imagine that. And the menu may have adjusted along the way, but we still put together an Italian feast to put on the table. David and Chuck and I made our relationships a priority. Many, many, many vacations were spent at each other's homes. Visits were sometimes carefully planned, but with an open door policy, the occasional spontaneous event occurred. When we first moved to Florida, Lou and I were in our new home maybe 2 or 3 days when David called to make a reservation. He said the first SpaceX rocket was launching from Cape Canaveral a few days later. He said we should be able to see it from our house. He and Kim were soon at the door. I managed to unpack a few sheets, towels, pots, pans. Next day, David navigated our way to a nearby beach at 3 o'clock in the morning. But we saw the launch. As long as he was there, Dave had to help set up our Wi-Fi. He helped assemble some shelves, and with Lou, got acquainted with the local hardware store. My memories are abundant. Dave has been an important part of my life forever. I remember Dave with love and smiles.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming today, but a bigger thank you for all of you being part of my little brother's life. There are so many of you that have just added to, his enjoyment and his good feelings. As I was notifying some of the neighbors and other friends of Dave, there were just truly kind comments. And I learned that, for example, Dave took little toys to our neighbor next door for his little kids. Thank you, Rabbi Judy, a wonderful person and a longtime part of the London family. She was part of the family earlier than she admits. And I was assigned to write Pat at the beginning of Beth Or, and both my daughters, Ellen and Rachel, were in one of the first classes she taught. Okay. To talk about Dave is to talk about family and service, the role they played in his life, and how our parents gave us the value. For brothers, 4 years is a pretty big difference. Many times I took this little red-headed kid with me for walks in the woods or to play in the local creek. Yes, Dave is a redhead, was a redhead, but like me, having two girls kind of takes the toll on the color of your neck. Growing up together was one thing where the age difference, where sports makes a big difference with 4 years. One time we built a snow fort. Yes, we lived in New Jersey and had plenty of snow. He would hide on the inside of the fort, and then he'd pop up and I'd hit him with a snowball, kind of like a little whack-a-mole, until my mother put a stop to that. The first time our parents left us alone, the three of us together, Dave, Sally, and myself, we managed to get in a little pillow fight, and someone managed to hit the overhead light fixture, and we'd got glass all over the room. So back then, the phones, you just turn the dial, and you call the place where your parents are and ask them to go find your parents. So I was about to do that. I think they were probably relieved that there was no blood involved. We have one family picture, getting ready for the Memorial Day parade. The five of us are all in uniforms. I was in the Boy Scouts, Sally in the Girl Scouts, Dave in the Cub Scouts, and my mom and dad as scout leaders. Kind of like a Norman Rockwell moment. But this really said a lot about values for our family. Though Sally was not, in the right height range, she always would be put in the middle of the three of us for our pictures. And mom and dad would consistently make sure that we had our meals together. We went on family vacations, camping in different parks and other areas, and just family activities. Mom would tell us, you guys got each other, and you will always got each other. Dave was specifically proud of his accomplishments in the Boy Scouts. He enjoyed the activities and camping. The highlights for him was becoming an Eagle Scout and attending the International Jamboree in Japan, which they scheduled during the monsoons. At the time, Sally was an exchange student in Thailand, and I was out at school. And on the evening news, some of you who've been around for a while might remember this. They go, it's 10 o'clock, do you know where your children are? And mom would get all upset about that. Okay. Dave and I did a lot of things together, though sometimes not at the same time. We both attended the Air Force Academy. I graduated in '94, Dave in 1978, and we both raised our families at places chosen by the United States Air Force. Dave and Mimi raised two wonderful daughters together, Allison and Stephanie, while living in Cape Canaveral, Edwards Air Force Base, California, Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama, and Wright Pat. Mimi was a supporter of Dave and his career and just a super great mother. Pushing her baby carriage over a rattlesnake outside Edwards Air Force Base was part of our repertoire. Sometimes things happen, the spouses end up apart, but both Mimi and Dave's love and support for the girls never faltered. We all loved having Kim as part of the family. She knew she truly arrived when Dad, Poppy, placed her picture on the family shelf. And Kim is really a true grandmother to Lucas, Zev, and Ari. Dave would sometimes come up with ideas. He wasn't afraid to put other people to work. He wanted all of us to get together for the last solar eclipse and said we should have a big gathering. Only the solar eclipse was not here, but it was in South Carolina, where Sally and Lou lived. About 4.5 years ago, when Dave was visiting down in Florida, my grandson Eli who was 12 at the time, was working on a project to do with Jimmy Doolittle. So Dave goes and tells Eli, your project's going to be a whole lot better if you come up to Wright Pat and look at the museum display. So then Dave and Eli go to Rachel, his mom, my daughter, that Eli needs to visit Ohio. So off Chuck and Eli are on our way from Florida to Ohio. And it was good because Eli got to learn how to shovel snow and we got to go snow sledding, which Kim and Dave participated in. Just to mention a couple other people important in Dave's life. Dave has another brother. He has a couple of brothers named Bob Frischi. The two of them co-founded a science and technology company. With a couple other friends, they turned their hobby of drinking into the Ugly Dog Distillery, the craft distillery in Michigan. But most important, Bob and his wife Katie brought Kim into Dave's life. And it was just beautiful when Bob walked Kim down the aisle in their wedding. Dave was active in the Jewish community, serving Beth Or, the Federation. The National Museum of the United States Air Force was one of his passions. Started out guiding visitors and answering questions, Dave went into the exhibits section where he would use his building skills, with the fixing, restoring the Holocaust Memorial, and more recently working on the combat rescue display, which is something I was involved in a few years ago in active duty. He was recognized for the 2022 Volunteer of the Year out of an organization with hundreds of volunteers. We can't discuss Dave without talking about food. Well, my notoriety is on the consumption side. Dave was serious about preparations, serious enough to have 5 barbecue grills of different types. And I'm sure he had reasons for using each one of them. I'm sure many of you have enjoyed his salmon and brisket. I did find one last piece of brisket in the chest freezer, and someone took it away from me and said it was theirs. Yeah, and someone over there is nodding, so I'm not going to get that. The last 2 months were spent in the critical care unit at Miami Valley Hospital. The people there, the nurses and the doctors were great. In some ways, they were magicians. Kim, Allie, and Stephanie, just want to say you guys were the perfect advocates for Dave. He couldn't have had better. I'd like to thank Christy for the cookies and cakes that I got some of before they gave me Ray. And Gary Ura for sharing his knowledge and true friendship to be with us. And Rabbi Judy, you were truly part of our family during that time. As we say goodbye to Dave, let's all take some lessons with us. The importance of family, intermediate and extended. Sometimes it may be too late. And service. Our value is enhanced by what we do for others. Let's all volunteer a couple of extra hours in some capacity for Dave. I think that would make him happy. Again, thank you.
I think he tried. He needed another go at it. Following our service here, we will have a processional going to the cemetery. We know that it is very, very hot, and people do want a chance to talk to the family. The family will return here from the cemetery for a meal of condolence in our social hall. And if any of you are concerned about the heat and would just like to stay at Temple Beth Or, we welcome you to have a drink and to wait. The family will proceed to David's Cemetery and then come back here for sharing with all of you. We conclude this portion of our service with the traditional prayer that asks that Dave London's soul will rest in peace. We rise together. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah, B'ma'alot Kirushim U'Tehorim, Kizohar HaRakiah, Mazhirin, Et Nishmat David Ben Avram Shahalach La'olamo. Ana Ba'al Harachamim, Hastirehu B'seter Knafecha La'olamim, Utzror B'tzror HaChayim, Et Nishmato, B'gan Eden Tehi Menuchato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, V'yanuach V'shalom Al Mishkavaho, V'nomar, Amen. Compassionate source of all that is present in the heavens, take this beloved Dave London under your holy, glorious wings that shine like the sky. In the name of the soul of David London, please provide rest of our loved one in Gan Eden, and never withdraw your protective wings. This soul, may it be bound in the bond of life. God is his ever-loving inheritance and peaceful resting place. As we say, Amen. And we continue now, as we will at the cemetery, with the words that is called the spiritual hand clasp between the generations, connecting us to those that came before. The mourner's Kaddish indeed reminds us that we had the gift of life, and for that we give thanks. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shamei Rabbah, V'alma divrach hirute v'yamlich malchute. V'hayechonu v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael v'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shamei rabo mevarach leolam ul'olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpoar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudeshat berichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'ama v'imru amen. Yehe shalom rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace bring peace to all who mourn in Israel, to all in our world, and specifically to this family, as we say, Amen. And we are seated. Our service is now complete. At this moment, we will ask that the pallbearers come forward, and first we will leave with the family, and then we ask that all of you either proceed to your cars in the cemetery or to our Lavin Hall.
Oh, say shalom b'mromah. Say shalom aleinu. Ve'apo Yisrael. V'emru amen. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Oh, say shalom b'mromah. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'emru amen. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael.
Yeah.